Welcome to the Deep Dive. You know, the show that takes a deep dive into all sorts of complex topics, but not just any complex topics, the ones that you, the listeners, bring to us. And today we're diving into something pretty fascinating. We got a notebook from one of you about something called EDQ. Yeah. EDQ, Evolutional Discrete Quantum Theory of Space and Time. It's quite a mouthful.
It is. It's ambitious, that's for sure.
And that's exactly what we are going to unpack right now.
So this notebook really takes on a huge challenge, tries to weave together all these ideas from across physics and even beyond. And it doesn't try to present a finished theory. It's more like a framework, a developing framework for understanding how established scientific knowledge could be interconnected.
Yeah. Forget those dry textbooks.
Yeah.
It's like we're all just exploring these ideas together.
Yeah.
You know? So let's get right into it. What is the fundamental idea behind EDQ? Like, what's the foundation?
Well, at its core, EDQ proposes this dynamic, ever-evolving system, and it's built from what the notebook calls fundamental, indivisible components called quantum strings.
Okay, quantum string.
But don't think of them as like literal strings, you know, like you could pluck them or something.
Yeah.
They represent like these fundamental units of energy and vibration at the smallest possible scale. We're talking about the Planck scale here.
Okay. So these quantum strings are like the basic building blocks.
Yeah.
Got it. Now, what makes this system tick? Like, what makes it move and evolve?
Right. The key here is that the system, it's not static. It evolves over time. It goes from a relatively simple state in the early universe to the intricate complexity that we observe today and that we can only imagine will exist in the future. And the notebook really emphasizes the importance of a few key concepts: chaos theory, fractal theory, and complex systems theory as the tools to really understand this evolution.
Okay, so how do those theories play into this?
Well, chaos theory helps explain the unpredictable yet patterned evolution of this quantum string system, while fractal theory, it gives us the mathematical framework to understand those self-similar structures that we see emerging at different scales, you know, like how a coastline looks kind of similar, whether you're looking at it from a plane or up close.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got these fundamental quantum strings.
Yeah.
And then order starts to emerge.
Yeah.
In the form of fractals. Tell me more about that.
Sure. So the notebook suggests that fractals, you know, those repeating patterns everywhere in nature, coastlines, snowflakes, trees, they arise spontaneously within this dynamic interplay of quantum strings. Even matter itself can be seen as a natural fractal, a form of order and organization emerging from these basic elements.
Matter as a fractal. That's a pretty powerful image. Like, the stuff we're made of is a pattern at the most fundamental level.
Yeah, exactly. And this brings us to the concept of emergence. In EDQ, emergence is the ongoing interaction between these spontaneously forming fractals and the inherent chaotic nature of the system. And this interaction, it's like the engine that drives the creation of new objects and properties, things that might be incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to predict just by looking at the quantum strings themselves.
It's kind of like when you mix flour, eggs, and sugar together, and they combine to become something totally new and unexpected, a cake. You wouldn't know it was coming just from looking at the ingredients.
That's a good analogy. The notebook actually uses the idea of a melody being composed of fractal tones, unfolding in time. These fractals are like evolving patterns, creating these richer and more intricate structures as they interact.
I like that. So there's this concept of the miracle of creation that the notebook mentions.
Yeah.
What's that all about in EDQ?
That phrase, it highlights the seemingly improbable way that stable fractal configurations can just randomly appear within this chaotic system. But once these stable configurations come into existence, they have this ability to self-replicate, leading to those persistent structures we see all around us. This idea challenges that traditional view of needing an external creator or a pre-programmed universe, suggesting that complexity can arise purely from these fundamental interactions.
So it's not about some outside force imposing order, but the system itself. Fine. What about natural selection? Where does that fit into this broader picture of evolution?
EDQ sees natural selection as this universal principle, the survival and propagation of the most adapted fractals and complex systems, whatever their environment might be. So it's not just about the survival of the fittest organisms, it's about the persistence of the most adapted structures and behaviors.
And so even empty space contributes to space-time.
Exactly. And then we see general relativity, Einstein's theory of gravity, as providing different projections or viewpoints of this underlying absolute space-time. This leads to the relativity of time and space, Different observers experience them differently, depending on their relative motion and the gravity they're experiencing.
So relativity isn't about everything being relative, but rather different perspectives on this more fundamental structure. Now, what about the discrete aspect? How does EDQ see the structure of space itself?
EDQ suggests that space isn't perfectly smooth and continuous like we often imagine. It's more like a network of discrete points. The idea is that regions, with more of these points, more densely packed, correspond to more curved space. And this offers a different way to think about gravity without needing extra spatial dimensions.
So gravity isn't a force pulling things together. It's the curvature of this network, caused by the density of these points.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Now, what about time in EDQ?
Time is seen as this internal motion, specifically the oscillation of the quantum string elements within a local region of space. The notebook suggests that the arrow of time, the fact that time seems to flow in one direction, emerges from the collective behavior of all these tiny oscillations at the micro level.
Okay, so time isn't some external clock. It's linked to the activity of these quantum strings. And a key point here is that EDQ says that both space and time are fundamental. They've always existed. No creation from nothing.
Precisely. This tackles some of the big conceptual problems with the standard Big Bang model, like the singularity with infinite density and what existed before the Big Bang, if it was the absolute beginning.
Right, which leads us to cosmology. How does EDQ view the origin and evolution of the universe on that grand scale?
Well, EDQ proposes this cyclical, closed universe model as an alternative to the Big Bang with its singularity. Instead of S single beginning, it imagines a continuous cycle of expansion and contraction.
A cyclical universe. So the Big Bang wasn't a one-time event, but part of this ongoing cosmic rhythm.
Exactly. The Big Bang is not the absolute origin, but more like a white hole, the opposite of a black hole, where matter and energy are expelled, and it's connected to a black hole at the end of the universe's cycle through these things called quantum wormholes.
Quantum wormholes, that sounds like science fiction. How do they function in this cosmic cycle?
Well, in EDQ, quantum wormholes are these space-time vortices where quantum tunneling could allow fundamental strings to basically travel against the arrow of time. The idea is that this process could transport space itself from the future, from the collapsing phase of the universe, back to the past, fueling the expansion of a new cycle, starting with a white hole, a Big Bang.
So the remnants of a dying universe seed the birth of a new one through these tunnels in space-time. And could this transfer of space explain dark energy, that mysterious force that's accelerating the expansion of the universe?
That's one of the exciting possibilities, the transport of space. Sure.
So a broader perspective that other theories can fit into.
Right. And when we think about the quantum world, the notebook asks this really fundamental question: what creates the distance between objects?
Yeah, it seems so simple, but it's not something we usually think about. We just perceive things as separate.
Exactly. And EDQ
Reality itself. And distance is just a measurement of that fabric. That's a huge shift in thinking.
It is. By thinking of space this way, as this dynamic network, EDQ tries to give us a more fundamental way to understand both the large-scale structure of the universe and the strange things we see in the quantum world.
That was quite a deep dive into EDQ. It's a model of the universe with quantum wormholes and a possible explanation for dark energy.
That's a great summary. You really captured the key points.
So here's a final thought for you. What if the fundamental nature of reality is really this dynamic, evolving network, constantly creating complexity and order? What new questions does this raise for you about the universe and your place in it? It's something to think about. As we continue to explore these mysteries, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.